Grums on X says Microsoft will no longer publish DEI reports after a decade of doing so. The world is healing. We're winning so much ground. Keep pushing and keep it that way. Now, I'm going to say, in before people start jumping and saying, well, it's Microsoft, they're probably just changing the language and it's going to be going down the path of bridge and all that. Honestly, probably. But at least it's going away from this. It's a start. It doesn't mean that people can let up and move on from it. It just means we're acknowledging that they are moving away from DEI, and that is something to acknowledge. I think that's important, at least. Stephen Totilo says, new, Microsoft confirms to me that it won't publish an annual diversity and inclusion report, ending a decade-long run. Microsoft top spokesperson tells GameFile that Microsoft has evolved past publishing one, which, again, that's where Bridge comes in, where I'm like, oh, okay, so you're not backing away from it. You're just finding different words to say about it so that, I don't know, Trump can't come in and say, I said it's illegal to use DEI. And they can say, yeah, we don't. We use other stuff that we made up ourselves that literally does the same thing. Prior reports tracked pay equity, company demographics. And this is the full story on GameFile. Microsoft won't publish a diversity and inclusion report this year. Company says it's evolved its D&I approach as it skips its annual data-filled report. And this is a screenshot of the representation trends from 2020 to 2024 with women, Black and African American, Hispanic and Latin X. They even use the X when it's been wholeheartedly rejected from the Latino community across the board. Funny how they just move forward with whatever the hell they want anyways. It should tell you all you need to know. In October 2024, Microsoft published a 44-page report detailing the diversity of the company's massive workforce. The dense dispatch includes charts showing companies' demographics over time, pay comparisons for different groups of employees, and even offered data about the types of people who were leaving Microsoft. At the time, Microsoft's chief diversity officer called the public filing our most global and transparent report to date. She also noted that it was Microsoft's 6th annual Global and Diversity Report that extended a streak. Overall, Microsoft reports on workforce demographics that dated at least to 2015. That streak is over. Microsoft has confirmed to GameFile that it will not publish diversity and inclusion DEI reports in 2025. We're not doing a traditional report this year, as we've evolved beyond that to formats that are now more dynamic and accessible. Stories, videos, and insights that show inclusion in action. Microsoft Chief Communications Officer Frank Shaw told me in an emailed statement, which I pause there and say, so you're not going to give people the charts and graphs and tables of the stats. You're just going to be putting people like Black women and marginalized people in videos to show that they work there? What the hell is going on with Microsoft? He added, our mission and commitment to our culture and values remains unchanged, empowering every person and organization to achieve more. In late October, I reported that Microsoft had excluded the word diversity from the 2025 versions of 2 major reports to shareholders that previously promoted the term and the company's work in that area. I noted that it had previously touted its D&I reports to shareholders and had not done so this year. I know people always go back to, well, obviously Smash, it's BlackRock and Vanguard and the low interest loans and the World Economic Forum and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I get all that, but you got to look at this closer and be like, why are they doing it? It's got to be for the global agenda. If there's any other reason for it, I haven't heard it. And none of them make any sense at all. Why would you not just hire the best person for the position? There was a story about how Microsoft hired someone to work on their computers that never used a Windows product in her life. That happened. And she was looking forward to starting her career at Microsoft, learning how Windows works so that she could tell Microsoft how it could be better for someone who doesn't understand it or know about it. Yikes, bro. Yikes. And those reports, as you'll see below, were full of some insightful data about Microsoft and how the company had been changing, which he perfectly times it to cut off there. But I think this tells us all we really need to know about the direction that Microsoft is going with the diversity and equity and inclusion DEI. But I had to bring it over to my good friend ChatGPT to analyze this a little bit deeper, to find out what was really going on. I said, according to a news article posted by Stephen Totilo, Microsoft won't publish a diversity and inclusion report this year. Company says it has evolved its D&I approach and it skips its annual data-filled report. What is your best guess that this means? And does it likely mean that Microsoft will be sneakily adding in their bridge DEI measures instead? You raise a very good question. And yes, based on what we do know from the Microsoft announcement and the broader context, we can make a few educated guesses. Bear in mind, it's speculative. Nothing publicly confirms your bridge DEI angle, but here's what it likely means. Company statement, we are not doing traditional reports this year. Microsoft says its mission and culture remains unchanged. So essentially, Microsoft is dropping the annual full report format and saying it will move to a different style of disclosure. What this likely means, less data transparency, fewer raw numbers. By moving away from traditional data-filled report, Microsoft may reduce or eliminate tables of demographics, pay comparisons, attrition by subgroup, etc. These are typically the parts of D&I reports that allow external parties, journals, activists, analysts to dig in and ask hard questions. The shift to stories, videos, insights suggests more qualitative content and less quantitative detail. Goes on to a few other things, talking about branding communication, shift from the annual and potential response to regulatory market reputational pressures. There is increasing scrutiny of DEI and DEI disclosures. For instance, from shareholders, regulators, and press, some companies may feel the cost in terms of resources, negative headlines, and compliance risk is too high relative to the benefit. Shifting to lighter forms may be a way to maintain the appearance of commitment while reducing exposure. Indeed, some publications note that Microsoft and others stopped publishing full diversity data this year. Does this likely mean Microsoft is sneakily folding in bridge DEI type measures? First, to clarify, bridge DEI, I assume you refer to internal programs. Yeah, of course. Yes. Here's how that stacks up. Yes, it's quite possible. If Microsoft is moving away from full quantitative transparency, then internal programs like Bridge or similar, whatever their exact name, could still continue, but they may no longer be required to publish detailed metrics externally. That gives the company more flexibility in how to describe progress and less external scrutiny on whether the programs are effective. Almost like the agenda wasn't working, so now instead of being transparent about it, they're just going to do it behind closed doors so that nobody can question any of it. Putting it all together, Microsoft will not publish its usual D&I report full of demographic breakdowns. Instead, they'll roll out lighter, more branded communications like videos. Internally, they'll likely continue DEI initiatives. Result is that Microsoft can proceed with things like bridge DEI type programs without triggering intense external scrutiny over the actual performance metrics, because the external disclosure is now scaled back. So that is a massive red flag and should tell everyone that Microsoft is not healing. I think people that are seeing this like Grubs, it says the world is healing, need to dive a little bit deeper into it, because after doing just some surface level research, it's like, no, it's anything but healing. This is seriously red flag city. But because it goes, in short, yes, your suspicion aligns with the likely scenario. Microsoft is shifting its public D&I strategy away, which makes it more likely that internal programs, including ones like Bridge, if they exist, will persist. And I said, but it is sneaky, because earlier up here, it says it's not necessarily sneaky. Sneaky may be a strong word. It's not necessarily hidden or covert. Microsoft has publicly stated they're changing how they communicate. And I said, but it is sneaky. The whole point is to get around the verbiage that is specifically being outlined by President Trump to make DEI terminology illegal. You raise a valid point, and it is worth considering whether the omission of the annual report by Microsoft is, in effect, a strategic response to the regulatory and political pressure around the terminology such as DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So it goes into a whole lot more detail about all that. And it ends it off saying Trump's current regulatory pressure on DEI, because Trump is actively pushing policies, executive orders, and federal guidance aimed at eliminating DEI-related terminology and programs, companies like Microsoft now have strong incentive to avoid using those terms, remove and rename programs, reduce or stop publishing public documents like annual DEI reports, shift those initiatives internally under new culture and belonging language. It's not going away. If anything, this is just giving them a reason to hide more of it and push it subtly, without, like, more insidiously throughout society. And I can tell you firsthand, Microsoft is not just Microsoft proper. Microsoft's products, including Windows, Azure, Cloud, Xbox, just to name a few. I mean, not to mention Word, Microsoft Office, like everything that they have. It touches so many things in the business world that they are the standard that other businesses look to for terminology and how to approach things. Like the word whitelisting is frowned upon being said because there could be racial connotations to it, even though that has nothing to do with whitelisting or blacklisting at all whatsoever. But because word comes from Microsoft themselves to say these terms are not acceptable anymore, they spread that throughout all the industries and redirect and realign how other companies think as well. It's not just Microsoft. That's what's so scary about this, is they have so much power and control over how people are supposed to be allowed to think in the business world. And then that trickles down to society at large. So yeah, it's fucked. It's really, really fucked. And the more research I've done on the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the investments that they've put behind that and aligned with on the World Economic Forum, the stuff that I've seen there, I'm like, man, I wonder how many people have been silenced by daring to say things about this, because it's scary. It's scary enough to say there should be a Hollywood movie or documentary about it. And it's kind of curious how no one's even talking about it. It's really, really curious. But yeah, as far as right now, I'll leave it at they're not going anywhere. It's just being replaced by Bridge. And the world is definitely not healing. If anything, the virus is mutating and going underground and getting much scarier. But I'll leave that there.